Tonight, he's losing his home because of delayed mortgage payments, and experts say it's a trend in Saskatchewan. Remembering the life of Andre Poilievre, who dedicated his career to working with at-risk youth, and honoring a Saskatoon athlete for his basketball legacy and advocacy.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, July 4th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. 700 people in the northern hamlet of Pachinak are stranded as a wildfire blocks the only road out of town. And while the community is not in immediate danger, its evacuation coordinator says the hamlet still faces several hurdles. Pachinak, which is part of English River First Nation, is about 500 kilometers north of Saskatoon. The fire has crossed Highway 918, which runs south to Beauval. That's left the community accessible only by air and water. The wildfire is still 60 kilometers away from Pachinak, but the community is ready in the event of fire and heavy smoke.
Medical services are all up there. There's an airport up there. We have a team operating up there as well of our emergency management team, and they are preparations for any scenario that comes up.
As of Friday afternoon, there are 64 active wildfires in Saskatchewan. That's up from less than 20 active fires almost a month ago. Only 8 of those fires are considered contained, with 20 of them uncontained. Meanwhile, down the highway in Beauval, about 75% of that community has been evacuated because of the same fire, and evacuees have now arrived at hotels in Saskatoon.
Well, for us, we're just trying to get updates from our community, and they usually post them on Facebook. There's an information site on there, so people are just waiting on the updates and find out how long we have to be here and how soon we can get back home. Mind you, it's only our first day here, so hopefully by Sunday we're thinking, but I don't know.
Red Iron says the last of his evacuees at his hotel arrived very early Friday morning, around 2 a.m. Mail service has also been disrupted in Pachinak and Beauval due to the fires, according to Canada Post. Saskatchewan has the highest rate of homeowners falling behind on their mortgage payments. Experts say it's due to the rising cost of living. Ashwarya Duda introduces us to one man whose delayed mortgage payments are costing him more than just money.
He created all these creatures up here, and that's one thing that I have asked, that when I do leave the home that I take that with me.
These animals make Tyler Franson's house feel like a home. His dad painted them before he recently passed away. Now, Franson is losing the house he worked so hard to afford.
I just felt a little defeated.
Franson has fallen behind on his mortgage payments. It all started years ago when pandemic restrictions kept him out of work as a contractor. Then came inflation, and as the cost of building materials, gas, and groceries went up, so too did his mortgage payments.
I was trying to do this by myself, and I didn't want to burden any of my family. We've got a lot going on with not only what was happening with my father.
Franson's story reflects a larger trend. Saskatchewan has the highest mortgage delinquency rate out of all Canadian provinces, and it's almost double the national average.
We've seen average monthly mortgage payments go up anywhere from 10% to double, depending on the percentage rate that they had, the home value, those kind of things. And so that's created what we call a payment shock.
And with the cost of living going up, Fabian calls it a double whammy.
But experts say the long-term picture in Saskatchewan is actually better than it looks. Mortgage delinquency rates have been dropping in the last few years, while rates in other provinces are climbing, as those mortgage payments and housing prices continue to rise significantly. That puts Saskatchewan in a slightly better position when it comes to the broader context of economic instability.
These kind of delinquency rates will start to stabilize as interest rates and inflation come down. What we're really looking at is the impact of things like tariffs.
Fabian says he'll be watching closely as U.S. tariffs hit industries that could target prairie exports and jobs.
situation. It's created movement in my life, and I'm grateful for that. I felt I was a little stuck.
And as for Franson, he's staying in his home for now until the foreclosure is finalized. Ashwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Home sales in some major Canadian markets are slumping. New numbers show Toronto, Vancouver, and Calgary have all seen dips, with bidding wars seemingly a thing of the past. Scott Peterson has more on this downward trend.
At the beginning of the year, real estate boards across Canada thought the housing market was poised to bounce back. Interest rates were coming down, prices had flattened out, and it was shaping up to be a buyer's market. But then talk of the tariffs hit from Canada's largest trading partner. That pretty much upended home sales in cities across the country, along with rising glut now of unsold homes. Starting with fresh prices from the Toronto real estate market this morning, home sales in June down about 2.5% from last year to just over 6,200 homes being sold. Prices also down 5.5%. The average price in Toronto now is about $1.1 million, and that's with all types of homes rolled in there, condos, semis, and detached. Now, what is spiking up is inventory. The total number of active listings of unsold homes is up 31% over last year to just over 31,000 properties. Vancouver, same story. Sales down close to 10% from last year. Prices fell almost 3% to $1.17 million, and another 24% spike in inventory to about 17,500 unsold homes. Once hot Calgary, same story. Home sales there down 16.5%. Prices down about 3.5% to just over 586,000. And again, total unsold listings up 83% to just over 6,900 unsold homes on the market. Now, the real estate boards from all three cities are pointing out that lower interest rates are good for buyers, but the tariff uncertainty created by Canada's largest trading partner is keeping buyers at a distance. Scott Peterson, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, it has been a slower few weeks for provincial politics as we get into the summer months. The biggest news being the final numbers for the province's past fiscal year and the flurry of Crown Corporation financial statements being released the week before. But on the weekly political panel on the morning edition, political columnist Murray Mandrick questioned the province on why they announced every Crown Corporation statement on the same day.
It's unconscionable to dump that much information on one day, and they do it for political reasons. They do it because there won't be the proper level of scrutiny for something like SaskTel. And SaskTel is worrisome at this particular point because they're in such a competitive environment right now where their base industry is of landlines and everything else is going the way of elsewhere. And there's competition, obviously, in the cell industry and elsewhere. We need to scrutinize that. We have to have a serious conversation about what's going on in Sask Power as opposed to having a conversation about, well, maybe we'll keep the coal-fired plants going for X number of years more because that's our only alternative. We have serious investments to make in the nuclear industry as an alternative down the road. But there's no talk of that. And there's the level of smugness from the government saying, oh, well, we'll just do this this year this way, and oh, by the way, the minister Jeremy Harrison saying, well, maybe next year we'll do it in Meadow Lake. Well, it'd be nice for the Meadow Lake people because maybe they'll get to see their MLA for a day or so because he mostly lives in Regina right now. But that aside, it's just not the way in a province where we are dependent on the Crown corporations to have them all stuffed in one day. It's a disservice to the public, it's a disservice to the Crowns themselves, and it's simply wrong. Quickly, in terms of the budget, you can't have a situation where your budget isn't even being balanced, but in a severe deficit situation that would have been made significantly more severe had we not had a major settlement from the tobacco companies. We can't rely on that to balance the budget. They already have a budget this year going forward, 25-26, that's going to be suffering greatly from what we're seeing right now in terms of drought, in terms of forest fires, obviously the trade war, no contingency fund in place like that. We have serious structural problems that need to be addressed, beginning with crop insurance, that have to be that someone has to take a serious look at right now in terms of how do we rebudget. They, for whatever reason, I'm not 100% sure why they did it, because government's always in the first budget after an election try to do the corrective, because they got 3 years before they have to get reelected to do this. They chose not to this year, and that's going to be costly in itself because they're that much further behind in the corrective cycle.
Well, it is Friday, it is early July, and it is beautiful outside, and that means there's really only one thing to do, and these folks have the right idea, hitting the beach on the South Saskatchewan River in Saskatoon. For some of us, though, beach weather may be a little hit and miss this weekend. Helena will have all the details in her forecast after the break. Stay with us. A Saskatoon priest who spent his career working with at-risk youth and gang members has died. Andre Poilievre helped create the gang diversion program Straight Up about 20 years ago and continued his work with the organization well into his 80s. Before that, he was the chaplain at the Saskatoon Correctional Centre. One man who knew Poilievre, who also works with at-risk youth, calls him the true definition of an advocate.
He always made you feel like your point of view or what you were doing or who you were advocating for was just as important as who he was advocating for. He never really judged anybody. He always just wanted what was best for people. He just wanted people to have a say, and he wanted people, the less fortunate people, to tell people what they wanted, and I really respected and appreciated that man for that.
Poilievre was awarded the Order of Canada in 2008 and received an honorary degree from the University of Saskatchewan in 2023. He died earlier this week at the age of 88. And weather specialist Helena Mahalik joining us now. And Helena, I love the summer heat, but I am sure glad that it's just a little bit cooler today.
I know, this is like my ideal temperatures. I think that the extreme heat was just a little bit too much. And let's take a look at what's going on in the province Friday evening. It's a very clear Friday evening. We don't have too much going on weather-wise. A clear day after a few days of extreme heat and more severe weather. Daytime highs still got pretty hot though. Areas around Estevan in the southeast still hovering just below that 30-degree mark, but many other places returned to seasonal. We did see a cold front pass through the south Thursday night, and that put an end to the heat wave. And taking a look back at the month of June, it was a very dry month, especially for places like Estevan that only got about 20% of the normal amount of precipitation, with the fifth driest month. Many other areas also got not a lot of moisture or precipitation, especially places like Key Lake, its fourth driest. But then on the other hand, you have places like North Battleford that go over 50% over its normal amount of precipitation. In terms of temperatures, June was pretty average, other than places like Key Lake with its sixth coldest, but many other places were hovering by just a few decimals hotter or colder than usual for the month of June. And the dry and hot weather definitely didn't help with the smoke situation up north. Over the weekend, we are forecasting to see, especially places around Buffalo Narrows and La Ronge, not improve, and places in south and central Saskatchewan may experience some of that smoke, both from our fires and from those in Manitoba. But we are going to see some moisture for that area. Places like Stony Rapids in the far north may get some moisture Saturday, as well as places in the south. But really it's Sunday that's our big rain day. Places in the south are going to get some moisture, as well as places around Saskatoon and even into the north. Many places are going to experience that rainfall. But into Monday, most of the rain should be ending, but some areas, especially in central Saskatchewan, as well as the south, may still experience a chance of showers. So just how much moisture are we going to get? Well, places around Saskatoon are going to get the most of that. And keep in mind, this is just from Sunday alone. Many places are getting close to 20 millimeters of rainfall. It's the same thing in the southeast. Places like Yorkton will get around close to 20 millimeters, whereas places like Regina are getting less than 5 millimeters. And most of this is just from one day alone, Ethan. So I would say Saturday is definitely your day to get outside. Sunday, I'll be inside with a book enjoying the rain.
Here, here. Maybe a beach day with a rain jacket instead.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Helena, thank you.
Thanks, Ethan.
Well, Saturday has been proclaimed Michael Linklater Day. The former Saskatchewan Rattlers guard is being honored for his basketball legacy and advocacy for Indigenous youth. Saskatoon Morning's Stephanie Massicott chatted with Linklater ahead of the day to talk about what it means to him and the community.
In my language, Cree, we say Anuah Gumagantik, and what that means is all of my relations. So we have this belief system that we're all related. So when we see our kin that are thriving or being successful, we share a bit of that success. So definitely, I can't take any credit for this. I'm honored that I'm being recognized in this way, but there's so many people who've contributed to my well-being throughout my lifetime.
How has your family shaped, your values and your leadership style?
Significantly. My grandparents, as I mentioned, Maria and late Walter Linklater, had their struggles prior to me coming into their life. And they understood the importance of getting back to their traditional and inherent way of life through spirituality and ceremony. So I was fortunate enough to grow up with that as a foundation of my upbringing. And it was something that gave me a foundation to be successful in mainstream world when I dealt with a lot of the racism that I dealt with in the adversity. But through those cultural and traditional teachings, watching them give so much to the community and watching them help wherever they could, even if they didn't have much, they always did their best to help. And it was something that really shaped who I am. So it was something that I wanted to continue on in terms of their legacy in helping not only First Nations people, but people in general.
I want to get back to basketball for just a minute because you were part of the inaugural Saskatchewan Rattlers team, helped bring home the CEBL's first championship. Take us back to that moment and what was going through your mind at that time.
I knew that that was going to be my last game when we were playing in the championship. I had announced that that was going to be my retirement. And if I take a few steps back from that, I recognize that it was a full circle moment for me because a long time ago, for some of the listeners who will remember, we had the Saskatchewan Hawks. And on that team, there was a gentleman by the name of Russ Archambault. And he was somebody who was Indigenous. He was from Standing Rock. And he was somebody that inspired me. So when we talk about representation and how much that matters, it gave me the ability to aspire to be on that court. And so fast forward coming to the end of my playing career, I realized and took that moment where, wow, like I was a kid aspiring to be on this court. And so it was important for me and significant to be playing at home on this court in front of so many kids that are from our community. And I thought about like who's going to be the next one to come up that is inspired by this game. And so, yeah, the moment was surreal. I knew my role, as like I mentioned earlier, was the end of my career. So there was a lot of talented players on our team who could do, what we needed in terms of winning. So I knew my role in how I had to contribute to our success. And the biggest thing was doing whatever it took to win the game. And so at the end of the game, when we won, my teammates, it was a storybook ending because I didn't ask them to, but they hoisted me up on their shoulders, lifted me up, and it was a storybook ending to my basketball career.
Go!
Well, this might make you feel hungry, or it might suppress your appetite for a little bit. It is the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest in Coney Island, New York. This 4th of July saw the return of 16-time champion Joey Chestnut. He was banned from participating last year due to a competing sponsorship with a plant-based food company. Chestnut returned to his winning form, gulping down an astounding 70.5 hot dogs and buns in 10 minutes. The defending champion came in with a distant second with 46.5. The women's field reigning champion Miki Sudo earned her 11th win, scarfing down 33. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. The federal government has unveiled who will benefit from an over $100 million expansion to high-speed internet access in the province. The feds confirmed Friday that 3 separate projects are expected to be finished by 2027. The work will connect more than 6,500 households in over 30 rural and remote communities to high-speed internet. Several communities of Peter Ballantyne Cree Nation are set to benefit from the work. A councillor from the nation says internet access can be a lifeline for northern communities.
I remember just last year trying to have a Zoom meeting. I disconnected so many times that I just logged off the Zoom meeting. We couldn't connect. That's how bad our services are up north.
Almost 3/4 of the households being connected through the expansion are Indigenous, according to the federal government. The funding from Ottawa was initially announced last year. And Helena is back with a look at what's in store for the weekend.
It's going to be a beautiful weekend, Ethan, and a beautiful week ahead. Let's take a look at the forecast for the city of Regina. It's going to be a sunny week and a beautiful weekend. Sunday, there was that rain forecasted. However, for Regina, they're only going to see that in the overnight period. A little bit of a breeze as well. And as we get into next work week, we are going to see another heat wave. By Wednesday, temperatures will be over 30 degrees again, but there may be some rain and a bit of a breeze that'll help calm some of that extreme heat. We'll see overnight lows at seasonal, but as we get into next week with that heat wave, we are going to see overnight lows above seasonal and even close to 20 degrees by the end of that work week. As for Saskatoon, a little bit of a cloudier weekend. Sunday, we are going to see some rainfall start, and that's going to take us into Tuesday. By then, temperatures will be jumping up, and by Wednesday, they could be above 30 degrees. Again, we will see some rainfall Thursday and a bit of a breeze that'll help with some of that extreme heat. And overnight lows will be seasonal until we get into next work week, where they're jumping up closer to that 20-degree mark. So we are seeing a beautiful weekend despite a chance of some rain, Ethan. So you have a few days to prepare for that heat wave.
Yeah, a nice little break there over the weekend. Okay, Helena, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ethan.
And that is it for us this week. For more news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/Sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. And of course, you can always also download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great weekend.